We're doing great. You know, I think about that because I don't want to make it sound like young old. I grew up, you know, like I love that laugh. I think about that laugh with College Game Day. When you were on that set every Saturday morning and you brought a flavor to that show and an entertainment value to that show that was really cool to watch. How enjoyable were those years for you?
It was really enjoyable, but I think the best part of those 7 years with ESPN was the people that I worked with. You know, Jay Billis, Reese Davis, Digger Phelps, the late Coach Bob Knight. Just being able to be around them whether we were in the studio in Bristol or doing a game midweek for the SEC or the Big 12, and then wrapping it up in the weekend wherever we were on game day. And I also miss summer was summer.
What is it now?
Summer was off.
No, not quite, Hubert.
Not quite.
Because you got to, if you're not dealing with your players, you better be raising some money, right?
It is much different in the off season than when I was with ESPN, and the only difference between the off season is there's no official games. It's just as busy or even busier in the off season than it is during the regular season.
You know, I said this earlier. I miss Mondo. I miss him because
not more than me.
He was just such a maybe. That's these guys. Maybe. I love that kid. I do. I love him.
Hey, Mr. Jaminski. Hey, Mr. Jaminski.
the personality that he brought to our sport, I think is needed in a way.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously you lost more than Mondo. You lost a lot last year that I think fit the culture. Right? I mean, Cormac Ryan, you told me before the season what he was going to bring. Harrison Ingram came in and gave you such a jolt from a culture and a production standpoint on the court. You lost a lot. You look around and you lost a lot. What do you think of this year's team so far going through the practices?
Yeah.
And what are the strengths of this year's team? Obviously, the backcourt we know with RJ and Elliot are going to be. It's going to be fast. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're right. It's, you know, losing Armando and Harrison, Cormac, and Pax. Obviously, their production on the court, but I would even say, and this is a credit to them, like, and you talked about it a little bit, was their personality, like their voice. They were encouragers. They were connectors, like. Just unbelievable in bringing the team together to form a team. And that's something that's probably going to be one of the biggest things for this year's team, is for this year's teams to find its voice. It just cannot be just RJ. Others are going to have to rise. Seth, Jalen Washington, Jalen Withers, Elliot, the freshmen, the transfers, and Cade and Vin Allen Lubin. Those guys are going to have to come along just like those other guys to bind us together to be the type of team that we were last year. But I'm excited about this team. It doesn't have the overall size, but the athleticism, the quickness, and the versatility is real. And it's really exciting to see what we can be on both ends of the floor, not just from an offensive standpoint in terms of pace, but what we can be on the defensive end and how differently we're going to approach the rebounding piece, which has always been a huge piece for us, because I've always said rebounding is the number one determining factor of outcome of a game. You know, Harrison and Armando were 1 and 2 in ACC games in terms of rebounding.
It's been so cool to watch from your first year to how you've put your imprint on this team and this program. It's no longer the traditional Carolina break. Now it's going to be even more so, because while Jalen's a very good player, he likes the perimeter a little bit more. You don't have this guy that's going to live and die on that low block. Two-part question. One, how's Jalen been doing? Two, with your guards, I guess the emphasis has been, I have this much more space for you this year, and we're so fast. We're going to live in that paint. We're just going to do it a little differently. Paint touches are so huge.
That's exactly. You know, like one of the things over the last 3 years, we've led the ACC in free throw attempts and free throws made because we put max pressure on the rim.
Sure.
So I've always talked about that I want to dominate points in the paint through post or penetration. And you're right. You know, you can still do that, but you may have to do it a little bit differently this year. in regards to Jalen Washington, I'm really excited about him and the way that he is progressing, the growth that he has made from his first 2 years to now. Like, he wants this. And, this is the highest level. The spotlight, every step that you take is either criticized or praised. He wants to be in that position. Armando is Armando. He's one of one. But we can still dominate and do the things that have always been foundational pieces for us on both ends of the floor. You might have to tweak and pivot and do it a different way, and we're excited about trying different ways to be able to do that.
I married a Swedish woman, so I have to ask about Elliot Cadeau.
Yeah.
Got to.
You won't recognize him this year.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
You
I
will
mean,
not.
this is
You
a
will
guy.
not.
Really?
He could. The
will not
thing that was
recognize him this
confusing, I always thought he was a good enough shooter.
No,
and
he
he
is.
just lost some confidence. How has he been this summer? Because that seems to be a point of emphasis for him.
Well, you won't recognize him. Obviously he's worked really. He's so talented. He can shoot the ball. And it's, the way defenses were playing him last year, it could play tricks with you a little bit. What's going on here? He's nothing mechanical wrong with his shot. He's worked extremely hard this summer. He's consistently knocking down threes, mid-range jump shots. The level that I've seen is just a progression of the maturity and the leadership. Sure. It's just off the chart. That's why you won't recognize him. Just his poise, his leadership, his maturity on the floor, the way that he has walked alongside RJ. The 5 returners have talked a lot about what they felt going in that locker room after we lost in the Sweet 16. And being up 3 with 1:28 to go and having a chance to play in the Elite 8 and wanting to have a chance to possibly get back there again. And it's something that drove Elliot, and I'm just really excited about his growth this year.
Hubert, I don't know if you know this, but Jeff Goodman never coached any basketball, but he feels like he can critique every coach that's ever coached Division I, right? You've reached the pinnacle of media. You are on College Game Day. So I'm giving you the floor. You can look in that camera right there. I want you to tell everybody, break down his media game.
Listen.
The thing that I do like about Jeff is there's a number of things, but probably the number one things is you are straightforward and direct of what you feel. And I've always enjoyed being around people that are, the way I communicate, I'm straightforward and direct. I don't speak in tongues or interpretation. I'm not vague or interpretation. I've always enjoyed being around people that are straightforward and direct. Even if I have a difference of opinion, at least I know where you're coming from. So in regards to Jeff, he says what he feels. And whether I agree with it or not, at least I know he's keeping it real with me, and that's something that I really enjoy.
That is the nicest way anyone's ever.
You didn't agree with it at the beginning of the year a few years ago, remember?
Yeah, I didn't. And
when we called out, remember, we called out the toughness of your team.
Yeah.
And then, listen, I give you credit because, man, you came up to me at the Final Four. No, when you came up to me at the Final Four and you said, hey, you're right. Like, we needed that.
Yeah.
We needed that.
I agree with you.
Because you could say it over and over to these kids.
Yeah.
But, like, sometimes they probably do need to hear it from a different, maybe not some idiot like me, but somebody maybe more reputable, a different voice, right?
It is true.
It motivates them, and, maybe they got to look in the mirror if they're hearing it from a bunch of different people.
Yeah, they've got a lot of voices in their
They
life.
have way too many voices.
Last but not least, want to praise you for this.
Yeah.
Our sport is better when people are playing people.
Yeah.
And, oh, boy. Kansas, Alabama, UCLA, Florida, and a trip to the Maui Invitational.
Yeah.
Big time.
How about
Big
that
time.
for a non-conference schedule?
Yeah, I know, and people ask me that, but as a player and as 9 years as assistant coach,
that stuff.
In 4 years, I don't remember our schedule looking any different.
Right.
We've always, if your goal is to be the best that you can be and be the last team standing on Monday night, don't you have to play against the best?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Dean always did. Roy did. Right.
So
We need Carolina to do that.
Yeah, so let's go to Allen Fieldhouse, see what happens, and let's compete against them. And it gives us a clear indication on the things that we're doing well, that we continue to improve, and the things that we need to improve on, that we got to get to work and go to practice.
Hubert, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you,
Hubert Davis.
I'll get you this jacket, okay? You
I'm
can
just
wear
not
it
wearing
at
it, Cameron.
You can wear it, Cameron. I give you